Tim here, and if you struggle reading the bass clef like so many students do, the lesson I have for you today is going to resolve those problems completely by giving you the best advice I have and an opportunity to practice together. So let's go over the basics of how to read the bass clef to catch everybody up. So here we have the bass clef, and we have 5 lines and 4 spaces in between these lines, and this is called the staff. The lines of the bass clef from the bottom to the top are G, B, D, F, A, and they are located here on the piano. So you find middle C, so you find the group of 2 black keys, you find C, and you find a G below that, and it's actually going to start the G below that, and what you're going to do is the lines are G, B, D, F, A, just like that. You just got to remember to start from that bottom G. Spaces of the bass clef are A, C, E, G, or some people like to use the phrase all cows eat grass, and those notes are right here. They are A, C, E, G. Here I've written out 4 notes on the bass clef, all on lines. Remember the lines of the bass clef are G, B, D, F, A. Some people like to use the saying, good boys deserve fruit always, something like that. But we got our first note over here. This is G. Remember, that's the bottom line of the bass clef. This next one right here is going to be F, right? It's G, B, D. F is that 4th line. That's going to be right there. A is this next one, because that's the top line right here. And then this one over here is going to be B, because remember, it's good boys, or GB, right there. Here are 4 notes on spaces. Remember, the saying of the bass clef is all cows eat grass, or A, C, E, G. And these notes are as follows. This one is E, right? It's the 3rd note up on the bases of the bass clef, A, C, E. This one has to be G. It's just one more up from there. This one is the 2nd note. That's actually C. And this last one is going to be A, right there. And to practice these on your own, I highly recommend picking up a pack of flashcards from Amazon, or even better, by using this website, musictheory.net. And what I want you to do is click on exercises. You want to go to note identification. You want to go up here to the gear, and you want to select bass clef only. And you want to make sure the range of notes is only the notes on the staff. And you're ready to go. It's going to ask you basically one after the other to identify these. This is C, right? All cows. C right there. You click C, and you got it right. Let's do one more. Boom. That's the 4th space up on the bass, or 4th line up on the bass clef. Remember, it's G, B, D. This one's got to be F right there. You hit F, and if it's right, it'll glow green. There we go. So I want you to go here once we're done today, or pick up a pack of flashcards, and I want you to do about 10 of these a day. See if you can get them as accurate as possible. And then once you're able to do that, see if you can get them a little bit faster. One other quick note of the exercises. Once you can get the right letter down, I would do 10 of those a day. And once you can get those right, I want you to start finding these specific notes on the keyboard. So this specific G would be right here. And then you want to give it your answer. And this will help you correlate what you're seeing in the sheet music to what is going on the piano, which is super duper important, because the notes, when notes go up on the sheet music, they go up on the piano. When they go down on the sheet music, they go down on the piano. But there's a little bit more to that. Let me show you. Okay, we covered the lines and spaces of the bass clef, and we will spend some more time practicing it towards the end, because I have a quiz for you. But let's talk about a few of the more advanced techniques that you can apply to the bass clef to read it ultra fast. So obviously you want to master reading lines and spaces first, but to build on this, we use something called intervals, which is the distance between 2 notes. So if you have a note, and then it's that A right there, you have the next note, that is what we call a second, 1, 2. You have a note, and then you skip a note, that is what we call a third, 1, 2, 3. So it's all about the distance between the 2 notes. In fact, when we were going from space to space to space to space, like we were with all cows eat grass, or A, C, E, G, we were actually skipping in what? In thirds. And a third on the sheet music looks like this. It looks like a stacked snowman. It doesn't matter where it is on the staff. If they are stacked evenly like that, that is a third. They can even start on a line. That's totally fine. Those notes are still a third apart. Now this is F and then G. What's going on here? This is a second. They are just 1, 2 notes apart. And a second is very distinctive because they are so close together that they kind of have to sandwich them side by side. When I start moving the notes apart past a second, let's see what happens. Oh, see how it kind of made them vertical? And then boom, once your second is, they're so close they have to sandwich them side by side. And that works to our advantage because you can find a second no matter where it is on the sheet music, it looks exactly the same. If we move 1 past a third, so remember a third was there, that must be what? A fourth. So you have C and F, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you count even the outside notes. You count the note you're starting on and the end note, and for now, any of the white keys in between. It gets a little more complicated once we start talking about other key signatures and stuff. But for now, you're just going 1, 2, 3, 4 to figure out just the number right now. There's something I want you to notice about this fourth, and that is the bottom note is on a space and the top note is on a line. Now what I want to do is I'm going to move the fourth around, and I want you to see if the pattern changes. Okay, I just moved it up 1 note. We went from space on the bottom to line on the top, but this time it's line on the bottom, space on the top. So they don't match, right? You know, one's a space and one's a line. They do not match. If they matched, it would be line to line, space to space. And there's actually a very special thing I'm trying to get across here, or a special point, and that is this. All even number intervals. So that is 2, 4, 6, and 8. They all have something in common, all the even number intervals. And the thing they have in common is the notes don't match. So if one's on a line, the other will be on a space. The other's on a space. The other will be on a line. And the note up here we didn't talk about yet, but that is technically on a space. It's just a little bit above the staff. If it was on a line, it would look more like that with the line going straight through. So remember this. All even number intervals don't match. And you can use that to your advantage because when you're looking at the music, you look at this right away and you're like, oh, these don't match. Therefore, it must be some sort of even number interval. And then what I do a step beyond that is just ask myself, how far apart are they? If they're sandwiched together like that, that's a second. If they're a little further apart, that's a fourth. You see there's like a pretty decent gap there that you're probably talking more about a sixth, or maybe an entire octave, which is from D to D. So remember, all even number intervals don't match. So what do you think about the odds? Like 3, 5, which you can tell right away because it kind of looks like a snowman without the middle in there. So that's a 5. And the last one we'll talk about today is the 7th, in terms of intervals anyway. We still have much more to cover. So this is a 7th, and they all have something in common, and that is they match, right? So even a 7th, one's on a line, the other's on a line. If I move it down one's on a space, the other's on a space, and you can use this to your advantage because the first question you ask yourself is, do these lines match or not? And the answer is they match, so it must be an odd number interval. You would think maybe matching means even. No. It's the opposite of what you may think. If they match, it's an odd number interval, and these match. Therefore, it must be a third. I mean, you look at the distance between them, it's stacked evenly. It's got to be a third. So learning to read these by sight, not only like the lines and spaces, but also using the intervals on top of that can help you read notes a lot faster. And let me give you an example. Say I have this cluster of notes right here. Now I can go through and tell myself, okay, I see some space notes. So it's all cows eat grass. And so these bottom 2 notes must be C and E because that's cows and eat, right? All cows eat. And then you could figure out what the top 2 notes are, figuring it out with the lines and spaces. But there's so much of an easier way to do this. Now, for the first 2 notes, I would use the space rule. A, C, E, G, and the 2 notes we want are right here. But I also see that those are a third apart. See that? So I know right away that I have those notes right. And next, I'm going to look for the distance between the next 2 notes, which are E and A, and they are 1, 2, 3, 4 apart. So I know where that note is a bit quicker because I know the interval. In fact, if I just look at it right away, I see, oh, they don't match. It must be even. They're a little bit further apart, so obviously that's a fourth. And then at the very top, what interval do we have? You should recognize that. That's just a second. So really, 1, 2 is really the interval at the top. And I know I kind of walked you through and it took a bit slower, but trust me, if I learn to look at the intervals, I can figure these out much faster, especially if it's a larger cluster of notes. Okay, if you remember a minute ago, we talked about a website to practice your bass clef with, which was musictheory.net. And let's go there again, but I have something a little different I want you to do this time. So this time, you want to click on exercises, just like before, but this time we're doing interval identification, and this is how I want you to practice these. Now this is very important. I have this set up already, but you want to click up here. You want to click bass clef. So actually, I didn't have it set up already. Make sure you have bass clef selected. You can use any range of notes because really what you're trying to figure out is whether the notes, like what number the notes are. Make sure that you have require quality set to off like it is here. If it's on, it'll look like that, and that'll make everything way more complicated. So just make sure that these are set accordingly, and you should be good to go. And then what it'll do is it will ask you these, just like before, one after the other, what they are. And let's just walk through maybe 3 together, and then at the end, we're going to practice these, really deep dive into these. Okay, we're looking at this. We have an interval, either 2nd through 8th. The first question I ask is, do these notes match? The bottom one's on a space, the top one's on a space. And I know that because there's not a line going directly through the note, it's between the notes, right? So that's a space. If they both match, that is an odd number interval. But I know that it can't be a third, right? Because that would be a stacked snowman. And then a fifth would be like a snowman with the middle cut out. But this actually has 2 sections cut out. So it's not a third, it's not a fifth, it's, what do you think? Probably a 7th, right? And let's click 7th. Oh, that sounded beautiful, didn't it? I don't know if you could hear that on my laptop. 7ths sound really bad. See? For reference. Anyway, look at this one. You got line to line. They match, right? So we're talking about some sort of odd number interval. It can't be a third, so I'm going to say it's probably a 5th, right? And it does look like a snowman, the middle kicked out of it. I always like to use those visuals because I can remember them. Boom, this is the same thing. They both match. There's a space in between. 5th. Again, this will be the last one. See if you can get it. They don't match, right? So we're talking about some sort of even number interval. And they're pretty far apart. So I'm just going to take a wild guess and say that's an octave. And that's one thing I want to tell you. If it takes up almost the whole staff and they don't match, which they're even then it's very likely going to be an octave. And you can double check, see, make sure one is a D and the other is a D. Because octaves will always match. It's just from C to C, D to D, A to A. And that's just how it hashes out. Okay, let's do this last one to make sure you're paying attention. They don't match. What does that tell us? Think critically. It tells us that it's an even number interval, right? And it's not, if they were super close together, they'd be sandwiched next to each other. That's a 2nd. There's a little further apart, a 4th. Another one that sounds just wonderful. Okay, we still have a bit more to cover, and I want to talk about ledger lines. Ledger lines are lines that we add when we go up high, off, or low on the staff to basically still tell where we still are. So if I had a note even higher than this note, we would have to add more and more ledger lines so you can kind of figure out, where we're at. Because if they just drew a note like this, and they didn't give you any other lines, you would have no idea exactly where that's at. So they add in those ledger lines for that purpose. And a lot of students struggle with their ledger lines. And I actually have a couple of tips that's going to make these go a lot smoother. So, but it is a bit to remember. So let's kind of dive slowly into it together, shall we? Okay, let's start from square one. These are the spaces of the bass clef. Remember, it was A, C, E, G, or all cows eat grass. Found right here on the piano, by the way. A, C, E, G, just like that. Now, here's my point. The spaces, and pay attention, the spaces of a clef, okay, A, C, E, G, are equal to the lines, these guys, going up off the staff, starting from the top line. So what that means is that if these notes are A, C, E, G, Well, guess what? These notes are also A, C, E, G. They're just up an octave. A, C, E, G. So again, the rule is the spaces of a staff are equal to the lines going up off the staff starting from the top line. Very important that you start from that A right there. So A, C, E, G, A, C, E, G. Okay, ignore the red for a second. It's just something with the software making that happen. But these are the lines of the bass clef. Remember, they were G, B, D, F, A. And guess what? The lines of a staff, G, B, D, F, A, are equal to the spaces going up off the staff starting from this top space. So if this is G, B, D, F, A, these notes are also going to be G, B, D, F, A, just like that. And you can use this, again, to figure out your ledger lines real quick. Because say I just had this note, and that's all that was written. Well, what I would do is I would go, okay, the lines of the bass clef are G, B, D, F, A. And I know that that is equal to right here, G, B, starting from the top space, remember, G, B, D. And I know that that note right away is F right there. Now, it's going to take some practice to really get this, right? Hopefully, you just kind of get the concept of it, that the lines of a staff are equal to the spaces going up off the staff, starting from the top space. And the spaces of a staff are equal to the lines. So it's lines are equal to spaces are equal to lines. I recommend you watch this part of the lesson maybe 2 or 3 times if you struggle with this, because it is important you get this. Once you understand this, reading ledger lines will be so much easier, because if you don't have this, this is what the case is. Say you have the note here and you don't have any other notes to reference and you don't know that rule that I just taught you. Well, good luck, because you're going to have to count from the top line. You have to go, okay, that's an A, that's a B, that's a C, that's a D, that's an E, that's an F, that's a G, that's an A, that's a B. And it's like, that's just going to take you literally forever. You see how many dots I had to write to figure that out. So learning this little trick, even though it might seem like work up front, it's going to make it way easier, because those ledger lines, they do get students a lot. And every student I've had that has mastered this technique has told me, thank you so much for telling me about this. Okay, we have a little bit more to cover. One more thing you can do to figure out ledger lines or notes is to use your intervals as well. So you can use all 3 of these combinations of things I've taught you, reading on the staff, intervals, plus the ledger line rules. You can use all of those to your advantage. But say I have these 2 notes, and I'm like, man, I don't remember what note this is. And, I don't want to go through the whole thing with the lines and spaces. But so what you do is you look at these, you go, this one's on a space, this one's on a space. If they were right next to each other, they would look like that. So I guess the point I'm trying to make too is notes aren't always stacked like that. Sometimes they're a little further apart. You just have to use a little mental work to kind of figure out what interval it was. But you can see what I did when I mashed them together. That's clearly a third. Excuse me, there's the A. And you know the third, 1, 2, 3, is right there. So use a combination of everything to your advantage. Okay, I have a final tip at the end that's really going to help you learn a lot more outside of this lesson. But what I want to do, remember how we were practicing earlier the lines and spaces, and then we practiced the intervals a little bit? Well, guess what? I want to practice it again just to kind of give you guys one last chance to practice with me. And we're going to start out easy, but we're going to kind of like make things a little difficult. But let's just get started and see how we do. Okay, we have bass clef. The first question you have to ask yourself, is it on a line or a space? And it's on a space. It's on the second space. What do you think it is? It's going to be C, right? All cows. And remember, this bottom space is here, and that's where it's going to be on the piano. And over time, I want you to start correlating what's going on here with what's going on right here. So that's a C. What do you think this one is? It's a line. Remember, G, B, D. I'm willing to bet that's an F right here. So I'm starting from the G right here. G, B, D, F right there. All right, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to figure this out. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You got to know that that's a D, right? G, B, D from the bottom. And again, we're finding it on the piano. And that's where it is. I'll give you 5 seconds for this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is A. Remember, it's G, B, D, F, and then finally A right there. Let's do 2 more. I'm only going to give you 3 seconds. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. That's on a space. Remember, it's all cows eat. And that one's going to be G. All right, go. Only going to get 3 seconds. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. That's going to be F. Remember, good boys deserve fruit. Good boys deserve fruit right there. And that's going to be F. And if you get the note wrong when you're practicing this on your own, it's going to do this. Wait, apparently nothing. Oh, see how it glows red? And then it makes you answer again until you figure it out. See, and then actually I kind of like that because it tells you what notes were wrong. And then you finally get it right. Boom. It's kind of cool. Okay, let's do some interval practice here to finish things up. Make sure that you guys have this down. Now, we're starting out with a tricky one. Remember, there's a few questions I want you to ask yourself. So the first question is, do they match? And the answer is, yes, they match. One has a line going right through it on the bottom. One has a line going right through it on the top. It's line to line. They look pretty far apart to me. So we're talking about 3, 5, 7, or 9 because those are all odd number intervals. That looks like a 7 to me. That's pretty far apart. Ooh, that sounded lovely. Anyway, let's take a look at these. They match, right? Space to space on this one. I think that's another 7th. They're pretty far apart. Again, what do you think? I'll give you 5 seconds for this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is a 5th, right? They match. There's kind of like an empty space in between them. So that's got to be a 5th. And if you're struggling with these, again, you will get better and better at recognizing these by sight. You got to practice this stuff, though, first. All right. I'm only giving you 3 seconds for this one. Ready? 3, 2, 1. They match. They're very close. They're stacked like a snowman. So that's a 3rd. A 3, a 2, a 1. You should know this one. That's also a 3rd. And the good point here is that, remember, no matter where these intervals are on the staff, they look the same in terms of do they match, how far apart they are and stuff. So that is still a 3rd. What you should know this is a 2nd, right? Seconds look very, very distinctive. Let's do 3 more. All right, I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's an octave. See how it almost takes up the whole staff, but they don't match? That's an octave. Boom. 3, 2, 1. That's a 3rd. Come on. And then let's do one more. All right. 3, 2, 1. They love the 7s today. Like, again, you see they're both spaces and they're pretty far apart. So that's got to be 7. As I said, got to be 7. There we go. And that's a 2nd. We all know. So the whole point is that you want to get so good at this that you can visually see these and like instantly know, like what they are. For instance, to show off a little bit here, because of course I'm going to. I'm just kidding. 2nd, that is a 6th. That is a 4th. That is a 3rd. That is a 2nd. I don't know why that said that's wrong. There's a 5th. There's a 2nd. So this is the point I'm trying to make. You want to get these. There's a 3rd. Super duper duper quick. And as you can probably see already, like visually, they look the same. So time for the final tip as promised. So the final tip is this. First, I want you to practice all the things we did today. Remember the intervals, reading notes on the staff, musictheory.net. But here's the final tip. I want you to watch the rest of this series right here. This is part of a new series I'm making for people that know the very basics of piano, but they're looking to just take it one step further. So check out the rest there. If you are starting from the ground up, the very beginning, I want you actually to watch this playlist right here. It's going to catch you up on everything you need to know. It's been your piano teacher, Tim here. Thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next lesson.